What's up, everybody? Jed Johnson here from DieselCrew.com. Of course, you know they call me Napalm. And today I've got a feature that's a little bit different from the norm here on my YouTube channel. I'm going to do a movie review of Iron Claw. Now, I just want to say that I am not a movie critic, nor do I pride myself to be any kind of a pro wrestling historian. So I can't just quote stuff that happened or give dates or anything like that. But I am a very dedicated fan, and I really like watching all the old types of wrestling from like the 80s and 90s especially, as well as documentaries that are put out about those times. Also, I really mark out about wrestling movies. In fact, even if it's just a movie with wrestling playing in the background, like I just watched a movie called Afflicted, I believe, and it's got this one shot where, is it Nick Nolte, maybe, is in the movie, and he goes and watches some TV with his dad, and there's some old wrestling. I think, actually, WCCW is playing in the background, if I remember correctly. But I'm just a big fan, and I really enjoyed this movie, and I just thought I would share my thoughts about it. Watched it on New Year's Eve. I actually wasn't going to go to the movie to watch this, but my girlfriend actually kind of insisted that we go watch it. She seemed compelled to watch it. I don't know if she had seen like a commercial for it or something like that, but she's the one that brought it up to me. And I was like, are you sure you want to go watch that? That's about pro wrestling, which I know she isn't really into pro wrestling, but she said she would watch it with me. So I was like, cool. I took her up on the offer. I was aware of the movie for about the last year. There's been plenty of talk about it, especially, you know, pictures of Zack Efron, who I knew was going to be in the movie playing one of the Von Erichs. And the thing that was generally emphasized so much was how big this dude had gotten. If you've watched the Baywatch reboot with The Rock, Zac Efron is in there too, and he's absolutely ripped to the bone, but I'm telling you, he looks like he's 20 pounds, maybe 30 pounds heavier in Iron Claw than what he was in Baywatch, and just bulbous biceps. His abs are all like massive, dude, like huge. No fat on him whatsoever. Good legs. Everything is developed. In fact, when I saw pictures of him, I thought he would be playing Kerry Von Erich, which is the Von Erich that ended up in the WWF as the Texas Tornado. But as it turns out, he was playing Kevin Von Erich, which is the only surviving Von Erich brother to this day. So that was a surprise to me as I'm watching the movie, because while I heard and saw plenty of, like, you know, Instagram, internet posts, things like that about this movie coming up, I was not really paying attention to everything that was going on. I haven't watched any reviews of the movie at all. I've only heard some podcasts and things where they talk about the movie and make mention of it. But any time that they went into like reviews of the movie, I stopped watching, because I knew I eventually would watch the movie. I didn't plan on watching it in a theater. I haven't watched a movie in a theater in probably 5 years. But I figured eventually it would come out on some kind of a streaming platform, or you'd be able to buy it on YouTube or something like that. And that's when I figured I would watch it. But as the circumstances came up, I ended up watching it in person. And I took some notes here, and from those podcasts where they made mention of the movie, I knew it wouldn't be completely historically accurate, but I didn't know in what ways. I didn't know if they were like skipping stuff or changing things drastically. And I think for the most part, it seems like I thought it was pretty accurate. Like, it's not perfect. It didn't like lay things out by the week and month or anything by any means, but there wasn't too much that jumped out at me. Like I was like, whoa, that's really not how it happened. Now I'm familiar with the Von Erich story because of the DVD that WWE put out called, I think it was like the Rise and Fall of World Class Championship Wrestling, which is the promotion that Fritz Von Erich ran and his sons wrestled in primarily. But I also knew that the Von Erichs would travel to, I think, Kansas City and also Florida, as well as the other promotions in the NWA on the Eastern Seaboard, maybe Georgia Championship Wrestling, and in the Carolinas, those promotions, Jim Crockett Promotions, things like that. I knew that they made appearances all over the place, as well as Japan, but I don't know historically like when they went and who went and how often or anything like that. So so that, I mean, that was cool to see. It was cool to see that they focused primarily on WCCW, which was their own promotion, and then Japan. And Japan becomes very important because that's where the tallest member, we'll say, of the brothers ended up passing away. But I did know that at a very young age, Jack Jr., which Fritz Von Erich's real name was Jack Atkinson, and I know his firstborn child was Jack Jr., and I knew that he died very early in his life, around like 5, and I believe it had something to do with electrocution, whether it was, I don't remember if it was like a household electrical outlet thing or if he was struck by lightning. I'm not sure. I'm a little foggy on that. You know, let's just kind of go with the notes. Otherwise, I'm going to ramble on. Zack Efron, I thought he did a really good job. Again, I'm not a movie critic. I don't know what anybody thinks about his acting, but I thought he did a good job in his role. Like I said earlier, he was absolutely jacked. So much so that I thought he was playing Kerry, because Kerry Von Erich was by far the most muscular, jacked, bodybuilder looking of the Von Erich boys. Now, Kevin was in excellent athletic shape, and he looked like a bodybuilder of the time, but Kerry was just bigger, broader, just more massive, and that's why I thought Zac Efron was playing Kerry. Zac Efron is so big, I am honestly concerned. It's really apparent to me, being uneducated in this kind of stuff, but it's pretty apparent that he was using a great deal of either steroids or growth hormone or both, because his facial features are just distorted now. His muscle growth is out of this world. It's crazy. And you can just do a quick Google search and see just how massive he has gotten. But growing his hair out, I'm assuming that was his real hair, really matched well for Kevin, because Kevin always had that scraggly long hair. But it was so long that it was like verging on the length of like the mullet that Kerry had. So another thing that made me think he was playing Kerry. And like I said, I was pretty aware of the Von Erich story and how it was just tragedy after tragedy. And, you know, the way that WWE's documentary video tells it, it's like eventually it was like the local territorial fans just like, they couldn't take it anymore. It was just like tragedy after tragedy all the time. And it's like, I can't do this anymore. I can't invest in these guys. They're all dying. They're all killing themselves and stuff like that. Some positives about the movie. Like, the way they laid it out seemed pretty good. As far as the timeline and the developments and things along those lines. Is it 100% accurate? Probably not, but I couldn't tell you where they went out of order or where the facts were changed for the storyline. I just don't know. Everything makes pretty good sense. And you can see that they're telling the story that the father is like overbearing. He's not really, it's like he's kind of lost touch with reality a little bit. I do think they did a really good job. Well, this was very interesting. So like, I'm sure any pro wrestler gets asked, or especially in the 80s, oh, this is all fake, right? And he's like, well, no. I mean, if you think about it this way, we get belts. And where you work, you get promoted. So when you have a belt, that's like a promotion. And that means that you've got to step it up and you've got to perform even higher because they're depending on you even more. And I thought that was really cool. I'd never heard that kind of an analogy given for the belt system and that kind of recognition for the best wrestlers in the territory. Obviously, pro wrestling is not a battle to weaken your opponent until you can pin them or make them submit. Obviously, it's laid out, it's choreographed, moves are done in a way so that you don't end the person's career. Otherwise, these guys would have broken faces, broken jaws, be spitting out teeth, their eyes would be popping out all the time. If the punches were real, if the holds were real, joints would be destroyed. So it is a performance without a doubt, but you do have to realize that there's a great deal of physicality going on, and these guys are like actors that do all their own stunts, with the stunts being extremely dangerous. Some more positives. The in-ring action, I thought, was pretty good. I imagine it took a lot of takes, and I know that Chavo Guerrero, who is, I believe, currently on the AEW roster, he was like in charge of the match setup, the move, exhibition, execution, and probably was involved in how they shot it so that everything looked good. But I thought the in-ring action was pretty good. One thing that I know is not written down that I forgot that I'm going to highlight right now as a negative is the fact that the matches with Harley Race and Ric Flair were extremely short. And I know that the NWA champions often, when they traveled to these individual regional operations, it was their job to wrestle generally an hour, and the match would end in a draw because they were coming to entertain that local area, and they were trying to make each local champion or local highlighted competitor look like $1 million. And then they would leave the territory, so they'd come in for one match and then they'd leave. But they made the person look so good in that match that the crowd that was there would be like, shit, he almost got him. Our guy David Von Erich, or our guy Kerry Von Erich, almost beat Harley Race for the title. I gotta be back here next time because I bet Von Erich learned something and knows a weakness for Harley Race and knows he'll get him. I know he'll get him next time. And in the matches, you can't show an hour time limit draw in a movie, but you're talking about a move sequence that's like 10 moves long that ends in a count out or a disqualification. And that right there was just not accurate. I highly doubt any Harley Race versus a Von Erich or any Flair versus a Von Erich match ended that quickly. I just don't see that happening. In fact, when Flair wrestled Kevin in the movie, Kevin kicked him in the head. Well, I don't want to ruin it, but it ended in a way that basically would have been a submission, and Flair would have lost his belt. So that's obviously not what happened. This movie was very emotional. Now, I tend to be somewhat sentimental anyway, but I teared up 4 or 5 times in this movie. It was tough for me not to just lose it in a few of these cases. I've never lost a brother, sister. I was lucky enough I didn't have even friends that passed away as a young man until probably in my 20s. So what I'm saying is there weren't a lot of people that were close to me that left this world really early when I was a young age. However, I've heard people talk about that. I've heard the Von Erich family talk about this kind of thing, and I was anticipating it, and it was very touching. It was very, it just made me well up in the eyes, seeing some of this stuff going down. Like, I just knew where they were headed with each one of these little things, and I knew how it was going to end, and it got me, man. So I thought, like, the movie did a good job for that. Is that because I knew what was going on, and maybe the other people in the theater who weren't as aware of the Von Erich history, maybe they didn't react the way I did? I'm not sure, but, like, it was tugging at my heartstrings, man. Some negatives. Just being honest, I thought they could have done better with the Harley Race character. It kind of looked like Harley Race. Harley Race wasn't a bodybuilder or anything, but he was tough as nails. And nobody messed with Harley Race. This dude was a badass in real life. So the body type for the Harley Race character wasn't bad, but his voice didn't match. Harley Race was a relentless smoker, and his voice was very gravelly. And I could not believe in the promo, the interview that Harley Race did in the movie, I cannot believe that they didn't work in the line "on God's green earth," because all of Harley's best interviews that I've seen, he was saying stuff like, "I'm the toughest man on God's green earth." Like, it was always coming up. So I can't believe they didn't work that into the interview, especially when you get to the Ric Flair interview that he did, which I think the actor, they really missed the mark with the actor. Kind of looked like him, but, like, it just, I don't know, man. He just didn't capture the Ric Flair vibe like I was hoping for. And it looked like they took some of Flair's most well-known interviews that really had nothing to do with the Von Erich feud, and they kind of, like, combined them into one interview. So it was very Ric Flairish, especially if you watched a lot of Ric Flair interviews. You're aware of some of these interviews. Like, what was the one that? It was the one where he's like, when you're a man, something like getting his ass kicked in every town, and you don't let it bother you. The specific words are escaping me right now, but that was one of the interviews that they pulled content from. So it was cool because I knew what they were going to say, but can't remember it now. But just knowing that it wasn't originally a Von Erich feud interview kind of, like, threw it off for me. So at one point, when at some point in WCCW, oh, you know what? They kept saying WCCW in the movie, and, like, I gotta tell you, man, I don't remember a single time where they ever said WCCW. It was always like World Class or World Class Championship Wrestling. I don't remember them saying WCW, so it was weird every time they said WCCW, because it just sounded like they were sticking an extra C in WCW. But anyway, at one point they fabricated a Von Erich and called him a cousin, Lance Von Erich. And it was actually, like, some local kid that people in the audience knew to be somebody else. It's the name of this guy is escaping me right now, but they called him Lance Von Erich, and, like, it just didn't work out. And then eventually, like, Fritz was on the air saying, "You're never going to see this guy again." Like, admitted that they made it up, that it wasn't a Von Erich, and, like, it really pissed some of the fans in that area off when they just fabricated this Lance Von Erich guy. And I think he appears in the movie because there's this point where Kevin is tag teaming with this dude with, like, very, very blonde hair. And I know that Lance had blonde hair, and I think that's Lance in there, but they don't make any reference to Lance. They don't say, like, we can't have this guy wrestling for us, he's not a real Von Erich. And I think I recall from the WWE documentary that Kevin and the other brothers were kind of irritated at their father for bringing this guy in and saying he was a Von Erich when he really wasn't. The other thing, two more things that I thought were negatives. There was no mention of the brother Chris Von Erich. They mentioned Jackie, the young boy that died very early on. They mentioned David, of course, was in there. Kevin, obviously. Kerry was in there. And Mike. Mike is the guy that tore his shoulder, got surgery, and got toxic shock syndrome, and it damaged his brain. And then he ended up doing himself in. But there was also another brother named Chris. Do I have that backwards? Anyway, the youngest brother, the last born brother, was not mentioned in the movie at all. And I guess they figured there's enough death in this movie, we don't need another one. But he ended up doing himself in as well. I thought the Carrie actor was totally inappropriate. It was the worst selection for, like, okay, I can't find a Harley Race to match the Harley Race body or the voice. I can't find a Ric Flair that really matches Ric Flair. But come on, dude. You got to find a better Kerry Von Erich than what you found. That dude looked like he was about 5'2". He was small. And like I said, Kerry was the biggest muscle-wise of all the brothers. So they really missed the mark on that one. Another thing that I forgot to mention was they said that Fritz took, it was Jack Atkinson took the name Fritz Von Erich because Von Erich was the last name of his mother. And I did not know that. So I don't know if that's true or not. What I remember is Jack changed his name to Fritz Von Erich after little Jackie passed away. So he didn't even want to be Jack Atkinson anymore. He totally changed his identity to Fritz Von Erich and played a Nazi general or sympathizer or something like that. So I knew that, like, I wanted to make mention of some things that I wasn't sure about or that I learned during the movie. So the Von Erich name thing. But also, I didn't know that Fritz was as big of a dick as he was. So if that's all really true, I knew he was a dick, but like this guy was like heartless. And lots of examples of that in the movie. It was really disappointing. It'd be really tough if your dad acted like that. And I feel bad for anybody that has to deal with that kind of thing in real life, because that was heart crushing. Some of the stuff that he said, like why you would say that in front of your kids is just beyond me. It was really bad. I do remember a story where I forget who it is in the WWE documentary, but one dude said, I think it was one of the guys that used to hold the mic for interviews, and he said that at one point somebody came up to Fritz and had a heart-to-heart conversation with him about all the drugs that the boys were doing, and Fritz didn't want to hear it. He fired that guy. So he fired the messenger for bringing him this news about his kids doing drugs. So I knew that Fritz was kind of off a little bit, but dude, he's really off in the movie. And the actor that they found for Fritz Von Erich, spot on, dude. I don't think you could find a better body double and facial matchup. Right there, everything was really good. Maybe not quite as gravelly of a voice for Fritz either, but that actor, whoever he is, I can't remember, really, they hit a home run with his selection. The other thing is, in the movie it said Kerry became a pro wrestler because he was on the Olympic team for track and field. I knew he was really good at discus. I guess I forgot that he was supposed to go to the 1980 Olympics and didn't go because of the United States boycotting the Olympics. I don't know if that's true. That's what it said in the movie. If that's true, I think that's the first time I ever heard that, or I totally forgot. So, all in all, I thought the movie was great. My girlfriend really liked it. We had some drinks with some people after the movie, and she was remarking about how much she liked the movie. So, like I said, she is not a pro wrestling fan by any means. She can't stand it when she walks in and I'm watching it. So, but she sat through that whole movie and seemed to enjoy it a great deal. And in my opinion, that means they did a good job with the movie. So, I welcome your thoughts if you'd like to put them in the comment section below. But if you like this video, give it one of these. Let me know if you'd like to see more content related to wrestling on this channel, and I can do it. But if nobody cares to see this, then I probably won't bother anymore. But because I thought this movie was so good, I wanted to do this one. Thanks, everybody. All the best in your training, even though this isn't really a training video.